Hey everyone, this is Judith Garten with Torah for Women Ministries. This is a Mountain Moment prepper portion. Being prepared isn't always about what you have in your pantry. Often it is about whether or not you can think your way out of a paper bag in a windstorm. And before you get offended by what I just said, let me tell you, there are times in the midst of panic, even in the best of circumstances, even when you think you're the best prepper, you may go blank. Have no idea what to do next or what to do with what you have in your pantry. It has happened to the best of us, and yes, even me. I will give you an example. Just last night, I was running late. I'm preparing meals for our Sabbath day of rest. And I had all these great plans of meals I wanted to do. I have this pantry full. I have meat in the freezer, had taken meat out, and I had no clue what to do for dinner. For 2 dinners. And because the recipes I had chosen were going to take me much more time than I really had left in the day. And I just wanted to be done and rest. So I pulled out my recipe book and I started to look through it, and it took me about 15 minutes, but I found 2 much easier recipes, and I got both of them done by working them simultaneous. One is an Asian flair dish and the other Italian, yet I was able to make them both without messing them up, so we're good to go. But see, even in the best of times, even the best of preppers might go blank. Now, another example I would like to share with you is when we had the ice storm and it knocked down trees and knocked power out for several days in our neighborhood. If it hadn't been for Jim and his idea, we would have lost a lot of food in our freezer and in our fridge. And the funny thing is, we had just gone shopping for our Thanksgiving turkey and fixings that year, and we had stuffed them in the fridge and freezer. We wanted to get all of that in before the storm had hit, so we had packed it all, nice and tight. And then we sat and waited for the weather, but when it hit hard. Our little tiny community was completely blocked off, literally, from the outside world with no power. There were trees on power lines, there were trees across roads, there were trees that were about to fall if the wind blew strong again. Now, there are some people who are going to be out there saying, well, you're a prepper, why didn't you have a generator? It wouldn't have mattered. Even if we had a generator, we could not have gotten out to get gasoline to run it. So we hunkered down, did the best we could, and that first morning I figured out how to take my little stovetop stainless steel percolator and I made coffee over the fire in the fireplace. As the day wore on, though, I started to get worried about all the meat in the freezer and the dairy in the fridge. Those items were the most vulnerable products we had at that point, and I was really fretting when all of a sudden Jim said, get as many pots as we could, get them together, and then we took those outside, and his idea was to take a hammer and break off as much ice as we could off of the deck and anywhere else, and we filled those pots as full as we could. We placed those pots into the fridge and freezer, and we were able to keep both cold. I kept one pot that was only about half full in the refrigerator, and I put the milk directly in that pot to keep that a little extra chilled. It worked wonderfully. When the power came on several days later, we had only lost a couple of small bags of frozen vegetables from the freezer door. Everything else had made it great. Between the frozen turkey on the bottom shelf and a huge pot of ice on the top shelf in our big upright freezer, it stayed frozen the entire time, not even slightly thawed. This is how we all need to be prepared most of the time. Our minds need to be ready, willing, and able to jump in and solve the problem that arises. You have to start developing that knack now. Start practicing ideas now for what you will do if you actually have to live off the dried foods you have stored. What are you going to do for water? A lot of people don't have a clue what they're going to cook or create from what they have tucked away. As you can see from our ice storm, my mind is not always spot on. And as you can see from my Sabbath story, yet having Jim ready to rock and roll was perfect. He covered the ideas I couldn't come up with, worked together as a couple, as a family. While I was able to come up with ideas for making hot drinks and even food for us to eat to keep us going, he came up with the idea to prevent our food from being destroyed. Another great idea to have handy, by the way, is a charcoal grill. That comes in handy for a lot of experiences. We all might love our gas grills, but if that propane runs out in the tank or your gas is down because of power outages, how are you going to cook food for you and the kids? A charcoal grill can use charcoal and it can use wood if you have that handy. These are just a couple of additional ideas to keep your family ready for what might come. Now, I want to tell you, it may take some time, but if you train yourselves, get yourselves going. One idea I would like to share with you is to take your family and on one evening or day, pull a few items out of the pantry that have nothing to do with each other. And without the internet, put together an idea for a meal out of those ingredients. Challenge yourselves. See what you can come up with. Now, as I record this video, we recently finished up Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, and that would have been a great time to practice some of your preparedness skills outdoors. Think of that for the future. If your weather is still nice, take a couple days, camp in the yard. Try doing things without your electricity. See how prepared you are for an emergency. Blessings and shalom.